I could, you know.
Cheers! We have no
Salute.
cans tonight.
Salute.
No cans open. But Chris, I once again, you need to tell everyone, especially the people who watch this later and see the first moments of the show. You need to explain why there's no explosive beer can opening. You were having my favorite drink.
I ran out of beer.
Ah,
So, and not because I had a whole ton of beer. I just ran out. And
don't be shy, Chris.
1.5 beers at any given time. But no, I got a little margarita action.
Oh, he's got a margarita. He's had a margarita. And, I've already really had my alcohol quota for this week, trying to be careful about that because there's a medicine that I take for my endocrine situation where it's not a great idea. But I like to have some anyways. But I would have saved up to have a margarita with you, Chris. I just have my soda.
Very nice on a hot day. Well,
So nice on a hot day.
Although we got some thunderstorms here. I don't know where you are. No thunderstorms.
Well, there was like one little thunderstorm in the middle of the day, but are there more coming, Chris? Is there?
I don't know. For the past half hour, we've had some thunder, some rain.
Oh, yikes! Yeah, we really could use.
We need some rain.
We could really use some rain, just something to like break the break up this heat. It's been 90 something degrees all weekend.
It's going to be even worse the next couple of days.
Oh my God. I mean, but I kind of, I love summertime. I mean, I also love that I have air conditioning, but it is fun when it's this hot, but it's not fun when you're waiting to pay for your earrings at the Arts Fest and just roasting, just melting, just dripping. Oh, Chris. Oh, like it was bad. But I got to use, I needed to immediately take a shower as soon as I got home. I got to use the brand new soaps that I got from Comfort Zone. So it's my favorite soap artisan, to kind of clean myself up after I got home.
What flavor soap do you?
I wish I had them here. Well, I think one of them is called Brandon's Beach. It's a very beachy scent. And then I got two other ones that are a little bit more like earthy, musky, sassy smelling soaps, so I can feel sassy in the shower. It's just a nice like patchouli sandalwood vibe going on.
It's not like a fruity strawberry soap.
Well, I have been using a very fruity soap most of the summer from my fave Bath and Body Works. It's pink watermelon, or it's like pink watermelon blast. Like it's really fruity. It's something very.
Wasn't that the drink you had last week?
What?
Wasn't that the drink you had last week?
No, I had a watermelon. What did I have last week? I had some kind of watermelon. I had a watermelon juice, sparkling watermelon juice. Yes, that's what I had. It was delicious.
It was like the soap.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm taking like a sharp turn away from the fruity scents with the ones I bought yesterday. But I like to explore, Chris. I like to, I have one of the things I say to myself frequently is if I want to feel different in my life, like I need to smell different, So
it's like I gotta write that down.
Is very important to me.
I want to feel different. I want to smell different.
I mean, it is one difference that. Say again.
There's a poem in there somewhere.
I'm sure that there is.
I think that could be the title of a collection.
Smell different.
You want to feel different, you got to smell different. Okay.
I love it.
I would buy that book. Mom and Dad are here. Hi, Mom and Dad.
Hey, Mom and Dad. Hey, Mom and Dad. Yes.
That's why I have the margarita. There's Susan M. Davis and Susan. I am wearing shorts.
We all have to wear shorts, or else we're gonna die over here. Finally, Susan's weather came to us, and now we're complaining. But it's good to see you, Susan, and it was so good to see you in person a few weeks back at Alumni Day. It was the coolest thing.
Congratulations on your latest MFA.
Yes. Absolutely. She says, yeah, I was still in shorts. Mom and Dad ask, are we keeping cool? Chris, I know you don't turn on the AC, but I hope you did this weekend.
Yeah, we've had it on not all day, but we turn it on at a certain. We turn it on when we can't stand it anymore.
Yeah, you just can't take it.
Hey, it's 8:01. We got to do official.
Oh, geez. Of course. Well, it is 8:00, and we need to welcome all of you to FUMFA 103. 103. It's wild, isn't it? And we are so excited to welcome tonight Laura Anella Johnson, FUMFA alum, poet extraordinaire, and special guest, poet and prose writer, Colleen Alice. And it's going to be an awesome evening of readings. And of course, we'll have our Q&A at 9. So make sure if there's anything that pops into your head during either or both readings that you pop your question in the chat when 9 o'clock comes. But Chris, what do we have coming up?
Well, we have, let's see, next week, which is, of course, the 14th of August, we have S.K. Marr and Amy C. Martin. We have the Marr sisters, Marr and Amy Martin, and they're going to be here reading some very groovy stuff. And then the following week, we're not going to be here on Sunday, the 21st, but we are on the 19th on that.
In person.
It's an open mic at Ecoevolution in South Norwalk.
Be there.
Amazing lineup of featured performers, including our dear old friend Victoria Buitron, Autumn Harvest, the comedian, very, very funny, musician and writer Matt Madden, and, of course, our friend hailing from
Colorado,
but Brooklyn by way of Colorado.
Yes.
AKA Midnight.
It's gonna be freaking amazing, everyone. And you got to go sign up. If you're not sure about signing up, make sure you RSVP on that Eventbrite no matter what. We want to know that you're going to be there. We're so excited to see you. Starts at 7:30 p.m. We also know that Phil Lemos is coming in. He has already signed up. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be so much fun, great time together. And, if we have time at the end of the evening, we can grab a drink together, something. Please do come out to that. It's going to be so great. Sign up, share your work, and just have a blast with us. So we're so looking forward to that. And we've got some great stuff coming up afterwards. And our fall season is going to be coming up as well. So as soon as you see our little survey go up, sign up to let us know you want to be on the show, and we'll get in touch with you for September through December. Crazy.
There's our old friend Melissa Slattery.
Well, everybody follow this fabulous example, Melissa Slattery. She has signed up and looking forward to the live event. We can't wait to see you there, Melissa. How awesome. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, Chris, we need to get started, though, with this evening. And we are so excited to welcome FUMFA 103, our first reader, our first guest of the evening, FUMFA alum, Laura Anella Johnson. Welcome, Laura.
All the way from Georgia.
Yes. Now, for all of our biggest FUMFA fans who have watched all of these months and years now, Laura was one of our first featured guests, and we are so excited to have her back. And we're celebrating a recent new publication as well. Well, without further ado, let me just read Laura's bio for y'all. Laura Anella Johnson received her FUMFA MFA in 2017 and has since published 2 collections of poetry, Not Yet and The Color of Truth. Her work, which explores life's meanings through family, cats, sunsets, and minivans, has appeared in a range of online and print journals and anthologies, including Literary Mama, Snakeskin, Tipton, and Reach of Song. She leads the writer's workshop Lines Between the Wine, I love that, in Warm Springs, Georgia, and teaches English ESOL and creative writing at Fayette County High School in Fayetteville, Georgia. I hope I pronounced that right.
Close. Fayetteville, yes.
Fayetteville. That's awesome. Yeah, ESL teachers in the house.
Oh, are you an ESOL teacher?
I'm an adult ESL teacher.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yes, thanks. All right. Anyways, Laura, take it away.
Okay, so yes, I am Laura Johnson, and this is my book, The Color of Truth. You can see I have a twin, painting back there. My daughter painted that at my request so that I could put it on my book. And if you would like my daughter to paint you a picture, I'm sure she would be happy to make a deal. Just private message me. She just graduated from art school within this past year. So my book, The Color of Truth, is divided into 4 sections. Section 1, Discolored, which is, about the things that are not as pleasant, that are off, loss and pain in our lives. Colors unseen are the truths that, that get past us. The colors are there for our seeing, but we miss them. Colors untold is when we know something and we don't speak up, basically. And then invisible color, could have also called it impossible color. When I was looking at kind of the scientific side of this, literally, there's so much color that the human eye cannot see. And I feel like it's the same thing, in the spiritual world and with truth. There's so much truth that we can't know as human beings living on this earth. So I want to read just a few poems from each section. And I start the whole book with this quote by Dave Ruse: "There is no tangible, absolute thing called color." And the quote that begins section 1, Discolored, "He who learns must suffer." Aeschylus. Old dog. Your pre-dawn click-clack pacing wakes me. I find what you couldn't help but drop in the hallway, and you in the kitchen at the open pantry door that has blocked your path. You stare, immobile, over dark onions and potatoes. I bend, gingerly lift around bony ribcage barrel. Does your low flutter growl imply pain or protest removal from your confused post? Outside you sway, slightly stumble atop the backyard hill you once stormed for tennis balls again and again. I'd throw 2 or 3 and watch your frantic, grasping, letting go mad dog dance. For years you flipped for the fuzzy yellow balls, chased squirrels or the neighbor's disrespectful cat. Amid claw-sanding, driveway darting, and staccato barking, you bristled and rebuked sirens and thunderclaps. If you meander too far down the hill this morning, your strength won't bring you back. I'll have to slide on sandals, retrieve you. I open the door, cheer your 4-inch hop up our threshold step, watch you totter back to your blanket. Feel that familiar vet office stomach dread, and pray you'll let go on your own. Lie down, unclench your jaw, let life roll away. Leave it, trapper, leave it. Not every poem in this section is super sad, but the next one is. Discolored, off color can be humorous, but not tonight. How to pack the classroom of a dying coworker. You'll need empty boxes, tape, scissors. Honor the volume and tone that settles like pale amber in the room where she taught teens to read. Don't disagree with anyone about anything. It's best not to look into each other's eyes. Don't mix personal items with school items. Place her Bible in this box with her silver frame family, her polka dot flower vase, and the snapshot of 2 young girls from her desk drawer. McDougall Harcourt goes over there with the boxes of reading workbooks and the set of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which were bought with county money and will be returned to the book room. Place her fringe lamp, pedestal fan, curtains, and rods on the back table. Linger over the fancy clips, the stack of tiny primary colored bins, and the well-done stickers she bought with personal funds. Eventually, you'll decide their fate. Don't say she's dying. Pretend she'll return when she's well. Move into the renovated room she's been assigned for next year. Doubt it wordlessly as you fold the box's brown wings. Strip a length of packing tape from the reel. Press gently, smooth, seal. Okay, so I'm going to move on to section 2, which if you're following along, I know I have one friend who likes to know the page numbers, and he's following along. Section 2 starts on page 33. If you don't have a book, they're available on Amazon. Colors unseen. We're blind to our blindness. We're not designed to know how little we know. Daniel Kahneman. And I'm going to read Colors Unseen on page 36 to my cat. My first book, not yet, was my MFA thesis. And I had originally 5 cat poems in there. And Barron told me that I was only allowed 3. So I had to cut a couple of cat poems. I have 4 in this one, but I think I cut it from 6. So if you like cat poems, I'm just going to read one tonight, though. But I cannot scold, even when colors lie shredded at my door. You who only see grays and grays tinged with grayish greens, swept by coursing animal instinct to pounce and swat what floats and flutters. You're oblivious to their stained glass colors. And your senseless butterfly torturing ways have me wondering what shades I don't see, and which of my good deeds lie at God's door, shredded butterfly colors. The dress. It was a striped royal blue and black dress. It was definitely not gold and white. I suspected everyone deep down understood this. The dissenters were pretending, yelling gold and white for shock effect, as some people like to do. Though the dress was clearly blue and black. On my Facebook feed, I scrolled past the dress multiple times a day, sometimes pausing to peruse the arguments and shake my head at the dress hanging there innocently, blue and black, washed out in bright yellow light. I mostly stayed zipped on the subject, having friends on both sides. Even my own daughter claimed to see gold and white. I applauded her for finding her own truth. The dress was clearly blue and black. Eventually, the creator of the dress confirmed the colors. I and the rest of the true hue seers smiled our smug smiles. Eventually, the viral dispute was overtaken by another viral dispute, Trump versus Hillary or some such clatter. And the scientists quietly ran their tests, posted their statistics, and expounded theories about contrary eyes that saw gold and white, though the dress was clearly blue and black. I have a couple short ones at the end of this section that I'm going to read. Page 50, Bats in a Tailspin. The Luna moth's frilly, spinning tails aren't for nothing. They discovered this when they bobbed them. Not mischievous little boys, mind you. It was grown-up men who robbed them. They put on their lab coats, laid them out on shiny tables, and went to snipping. Next, they set them free, and what do you know? They flew off happily, swooping, soaring, dipping. But it was like they had "Eat Me" tattooed on their wings. And for the science, this was quite a revelation because bats can't see, much less read. They find food through echolocation. The tails were mucking up the bats' sonar, faking them out, sending them to munch on air. Crazy thing is, the Luna moths still don't know this, flying about in their lime green coattails, looking debonair. And Ebenezer. And as Samuel was offering up the burnt offering, the Philistines drew near. 1 Samuel 7. They looked up and vowed they'd never forget that loud pealing of the heavens or how the panicked Philistines fled for their lives. They'd always remember this victory roar, this swell in their chest, and would never forget this song, this dance, this praise to him who helped. They rattled their timbrels high and low around Samuel's remembrance stone, forgetting the altar a few drum beats back, where a lamb lay, drained out and scorched, his ashes riding the wind like their forgotten sins. Section 3 is Colors Untold. And the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. Paul Simon. Colors Untold. I'm 8. Mama and I hover over a tabletop scatter of black and white photos. I pick up one of me, age 3, on my toes in knee-deep meadow. There had been flowers, every color in the crayon box. I sang Tiny Tim's Tiptoe Through the Tulips, Tennessee Walker Philly, high-legging it through paradise. Tulips, I called them, but many kinds bent in the breeze. My mother grinned. Someone took a picture. But in this photo, no flowers, only grass and weeds. Mama sees a question on my face. Don't you remember tiptoeing through the tulips? I don't answer. Don't tell her about the missing flowers, the happy breeze-bent colors I had been so careful not to crush. Adult Bible class, answering objections to the faith. We raise hands, answer our pastor's questions. His eyes shine, his belly wide, his cheeks rosy. When his hair whitens and his beard grows, he'll make the best sort of Santa. I'm a star pupil, been at this stuff since I sat in a tiny chair like the children down the hall, wowed by packet pictures of Jesus calming the storms or healing the blind. We adults sit in neat rows of unfolded metal and read passages aloud. All scripture is God-breathed, good for teaching, edifying, rebuking, correcting. But young Claus isn't asking my questions, the ones tangled in and out and around 50 years of answers. What kind of faith believes the God-breathed inerrancy of the history I hold in my hand? The sort that begins with, "Thus saith the Lord," and ends with a smoldering town, forbidden to leave any alive, women, livestock, children, infants. But his merry voice is tossing out a resurrection question. I raise my hand, knock down an easy objection. Later, someone will compliment me. I loved your comments, your insights, and won't suspect that tucked behind my stained glass faith, dark spaces lurk agape. Okay. And section 4 is invisible color. Human eyes only see between 390 to 750 nanometers of the full electromagnetic spectrum, while the remaining trillion wavelengths escape our view. Dave DeRisso. Reflection. This is a two-part poem. 1, The Humans. Stephanie was flipping waffles and I was frying eggs when you kamikazed your reflection, dropped into your awkward, ruffled breathing. Our hysterical hound howled. Aw, he's just stunned. Away with the dog. Let's get him off the ground, into a box, onto the patio table. Raise the umbrella. Who could we call? Drive to Marietta for a woodpecker? We played spa music for you on the way to Marietta and named you Chip after your chipped beak. What if we open the box and he's dead? On cue, you rake talon across cardboard. What if we open the box and he flies around the vet's office? What have you got? A flicker? My signature relinquished you. A woman in a white coat swept you away, box unopened, to the back room. We were eating tacos at La Fonda with Caleb and Amy when I called the vet. The front desk lady checked, said you were, quote, on oxygen and stable. I ended the call. We laughed around the table, then settled down, quiet-like, wondered how it would be to be a small feathered thing breathing the oxygen of giants. 2. The bird. Now that it's over, I see the glass that half smacked my life out and the other half flitting away painfully. Now that it's over, I get the cardboard box, your trembling, halting hands lifting me in, the whirring car, the excited white coat voices, the oxygen mask, the calling veterinarians. None of it made sense then. Confusion and fear flocked and throbbed. But now that I've fledged timeless feathers and swooped into eternity, I see what I was, a flicker, fighting my reflection. And if I could drop a note from my spirit foot, I'd help you see how you battle yourself too, how you ride thin, rumbling hope in your own box. Page 86, Wild. Tiger lily was my first thought because I don't know my lilies. Maybe it was your wildness that led me there, the way you arrived unexpectedly with a big red, "Here I am." But when I looked online, I found you were no tigress. You've been called spider, naked lady, magic, and hurricane. Even better. Not just wild, passionate. You are perennial, they say, not wild. Yet what besides a wild independence would compel you to volunteer beside my mailbox today? Suddenly there, growing with the grass, your lacy red petals curling up like a strong man's arms or his handlebar mustache. No, that's not right. You are a lady, a naked lady, strutting your stuff far from your own bed. Thanks for showing up. Amazing as magic, sneaky as a spider, free as a hurricane. Okay, so over the past few years, I've become at least as obsessed with swimming as I am with poetry. So I need to read you my swim poem. It's called "To the Lake at Dusk." Your slick, muddy bottom greets my bare feet. Soft ripples answer my lunge and glide. You absorb my all-day desk hunch, fretting brain, typing fingers, and eye strain. They dissolve into you, and I am weightless. You stretch my spirit long, flow around me, flutter alongside my reaching fingers. You are a poem, and I am your rhythm. My paddle arms move you, and I am moved by you. You awaken my legs and feet. They remember their ancient kick and flutter. You yield to my path. Carry me, hold me like the tenderness of God. You turn breath into sound, a song of bubbles with each exhale. To breathe you in is to die. I turn my head, breathe in sunset, aroma of algae and submerged earth. Swirl after swirl, you circle, as blood cycles within me and my heart pounds in me and you. To know your shore-to-shore fullness demands my energy and ardor meted out steadily until I am spent. Roll over, lie back, let your edges lick my floating shores. You rise and fall against my cheeks, thighs, and fingers of my outstretched hands. I am washed, baptized, and the world's reborn. Crickets and frogs sing their sacred songs. Okay, I have one more, on page 99, And I feel like this one needs a little bit of background. When I was a child, I was unusually terrified by the prospect of dying and going to hell. And, you know, I wasn't taught, nobody, the adults around me weren't saying, you're going to go to hell, Laura. But, you know, and I was taught Jesus loves me. You know, I knew the song from when I was a toddler. This I know, for the Bible tells me so. I was taught that Jesus died for my sins so I could go to heaven. But there was also this business about getting saved that seemed a little bit, you know, how do you know exactly how that works? And even after I was baptized, and then, you know, later on, someone was saying you can be baptized, you can be a member of church, you can think you're a Christian, and you're still, you know, I could still be going to hell, you know. So I was very afraid. And it was when I was 14, I wrote down my doubts and fears, sins to God, and at the end of that, you know, I realized, well, if this is true, you know, God loves me, and He sent Jesus to die for my sins, and He's God, and He wants me to be saved, and He has enough power, then all that's left is for me to trust Him. And so, you know, I just prayed, I trust you with what's on this paper, with my life, with my eternity. And that was great. And I lost my fear of death, and I had all this peace. But then the new problem was, well, you know, I still believed in hell, and there are a lot of other people around me. And I thought, well, maybe they're feeling the way I felt, or maybe they don't believe at all. Maybe they don't believe because they haven't heard. And there was this pressure. I just felt like I had to have a conversation with everyone to find out, you know, so I could have assurance that they have assurance. And if I didn't, then I felt guilty anyway. At this point in my life, I mean, I carried that until my 40s. And maybe poetry has helped me to grow beyond that. I feel now that God's love is bigger and more powerful and more trustworthy than I imagined before. And I have learned to rest and relax a little bit. But in 1999, when my grandmother died, I was not at this point. And so that is where this poem comes from. It's called Toward the Light. Spaghetti sloshed in the colander. The phone rang. Mom choked out, "Great mama died this morning." I left my wide-eyed children and husband at the table, retreated to the garage, sank against the black rubber of our minivan, prayed from the depths of my salvation, damnation, obsession, "Oh God, let her in." And I heard you laugh. Your voice and inner voice again during my gallbladder attack, sliding down the bathroom wall. Such pain had to mean I'd be leaving Earth soon. I'm on my way, Great Mom. No, baby, not tonight. Mom says I snore like you. It turns out I have sleep apnea. You probably had it too, just one of the choke holes that wearied your heart. You're closer, I know. I strap on the mask and tube, deep sea dive into sleep. My hourglass youth has morphed into a clock-shaped middle age. My sister takes a telling photo. Dear God, I look like Great Mama. Like Great Mama? Oh, but we loved her. That's nice. And no offense, just no girl wants to look like her grandmother. Honey, it's okay. You're just getting closer. When I eat too much cheese and it won't pass through my body without a fuss, I think of how you never touch the stuff. See, I hear you say. And when I drop crumbs on my chest often, like you did, I hear your echo. I don't know why I keep feeding them. God knows they don't need to grow. After TV evenings in the upstairs room, I grip the rail, stiffly lumber down, and remember your last struggle up Mom's doorsteps. One day these old legs are going to quit hurting, but then I won't know it, and you cackled. Won't know it. Your words troubled me. My non-response shamed me for years. But you talk like one who knows no pain, knows joy that eclipses fear and death, knows the awkward granddaughter who sat quietly while the sociable one carried the conversation. You must be in a good place, the way you talk and smile. a clear place where eternal souls laugh at unenlightened minds, fearful sinews flexed against crossing over, and gray-haired regrets of bodies widened out as though bodies are who we are. I want to laugh like that. Perhaps in a place outside of time, we'll laugh together at the crying woman sunk low in a garage, fretting over darkness and torment, while all around us is light. Thank you.
Laura! Oh, hold it in my tear. Just absolutely gorgeous, poignant, powerful stuff. Just really incredible poems. And I could see that theme of color and faith and, you know, the unseen, right? The seen versus the unseen, and the faith that we have in that, or that we struggle to have in that. It so resonates with me on about a million levels. And, you know, just really awesome poems, Laura. Chris, just fantastic, right?
Beautiful, beautiful. And people, please, if you have questions, and I know you have questions for Laura, put them into the chat so we can ask them when we get to Q&A time a little bit later, because I know I have some questions. And just beautiful poems, and so, you know, a lot of different kinds of poems too.
Yes.
And I mean, I could ask a million questions.
Yes.
And only one of which I'll ask right now, which is like, what was Barron thinking? Where does this rule?
Where does the limit on cat poems come from?
I don't know what his deal is. I mean,
3 cat poems.
only 3
Forget
cat
that.
poems in the book. Come on.
That is just so funny.
Yes.
Oh, Laura, that was just the hell, the fear of hell, that trauma. Oh my God, I don't miss those feelings. I resonate with that as a you know,
Sure.
coming from that background. I think Chris, you know, can as well, and just what a powerful expression of that. What a beautiful story, especially in that last poem, and just so much to say about all the rest. Yeah, just absolutely fantastic. Well, we'll see you in the Q&A, Laura. And the beautiful book, beautiful painting as well. It was nice to see that in the background the whole time as well.
Hope you don't mind that little commercial at the beginning.
It was fantastic. All right, thank you so much, Laura. We will see you in a little bit. All right. Oh my gosh, Chris, I'm still like knocked out and blown away and tears in my eyes. Oh my God. Wow. That so super duper resonates with my, you know, Christian life experiences among, you know, all of my, you know, just with everything else that's resonates in about a million ways for me. But anyhow, we will see Laura again. We need to welcome our second guest of the evening. We're so excited to introduce to you Colleen Alice. Hey, Colleen. Colleen,
Hi.
I just want to make sure that I'm pronouncing your name right. Last name Alice, right?
That's right.
Yes. All right.
I asked that previously.
I'm glad you did.
I'm mangling names myself.
We never want to mispronounce. Colleen, we are very excited to meet you this evening. We know you have a recent book out, and we're excited to hear you. But Chris, would you do the honors of sharing Colleen's bio?
Of course, happy to. Colleen is a native Michigander, a writer living in Grand Rapids. That's I have a dear old friend who lives in Grand Rapids. This year, her first full-length poetry collection, After the 8 Ball, was published by the University of Wisconsin. Point. Master of Arts, her second novel, is forthcoming. This is her second novel, by the way. It's not a poetry collection. Second novel.
No, we got a double threat here. We got a double genre situation.
Yes, and Colleen is a contributing editor for short fiction with Barron Magazine. That's Barren, and that's out of Kalamazoo. You can find her online at www.colleenalice.com. Everybody welcome Colleen Alice. Take it away.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much for having me. This is really fun and kind of exciting and nice to meet both of you and nice to meet Laura, you as well. I'll have more things to say when we get to the Q&A section about your poetry, Laura, but I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed too the commentary you made around dividing the poems into sections and finding ways that they fit into those sections. That resonated a lot with me too, because as Chris mentioned, this is my first full length collection of poetry. And prior to this, I had had a few chapbooks of poetry. I learned very quickly that putting together a full length collection is a lot harder than putting together a chapbook of poetry. A chapbook is maybe 12 to 16 poems, and thematically, it was easier to put my work into categories in that way. But I knew the next challenge was to create something a little bit longer. And then came a long process of me printing poems and shuffling the order, putting piles on my living room floor, walking around those piles, picking them up, tossing poems, adding poems. And it took kind of a long time actually for this collection to finally come to where it was this spring with the University of Wisconsin. And so here it is after the 8 Ball. Cornerstone Press, they did a wonderful job. They had students lead me through the whole process, which was wonderful. They provided support with editing. They created the cover. They did the interior layout. They helped with marketing. They just did a tremendous job, and I had such a wonderful experience with them. And there are all kinds of fun things I'll try to kind of show you in the book as we go. So as you were saying, Laura, dividing the book thematically, I chose the 8 Ball as kind of a way to think about the poems. The 8 Ball that, the one you remember from childhood that you shake, ask a question, and then see what it has to say. So, for example, the book is divided into 6 sections corresponding with some of those answers. I learned in my research, by the way, that most of the answers in the 8 Ball are leaning toward yes. I think it's like a 2-to-1 ratio even. Some say maybe, of course, but most of the answers are pointing toward yes, which I thought was really funny. And then a friend of mine said, like, of course, it's something that people do at parties to say, hey, should we have another drink? Like, yes, of course you should. But at any rate, the students at the University of Wisconsin, they made really cool section dividers corresponding with those. And so I'll try to read a few poems from each section. Outlook Not So Good, Better Not Tell You Now, along those lines. So I just tried to think about all of these poems. If they were asking a question to the 8 Ball, what would the 8 Ball's response be? And sometimes I would feel that the answer was yes, affirmative, but other times I would feel the answer was no. And very often it was somewhere in the middle, that kind of that murky territory. So I'll start tonight with a poem that I'm going to show you too, because the students at Cornerstone did this very great spacing jump. They suggested I do this with this poem, Phases, that I had written. And I just love that suggestion and can't appreciate it until you see it on the page. But I'll go ahead and begin with Phases. If you thought the moon was missing one piece this morning, like a bone-white china cup carelessly dropped by someone, please remember, the moon is always whole. It's just sometimes she will show you her whole shape, her roundness, her grace, when she is reflecting hot light from the sun. Other times, she won't. Okay. So this book came out in the spring of 2022, and as I mentioned, I spent many years putting together these poems. But a few of my favorites from the collection were poems that were written during the pandemic, 2020 lockdown times. And so, if it feels like a lot of the poems speak to the interior, like the literal interior of being stuck inside your house, that's a small note of explanation that way. I think a lot of my poems are concerned with the interior and just kind of the everyday experience of Midwest living, but this one in particular is about the interior of your home. Uh, so it's from a section called Better Not Tell You Now, and the poem is called Voyeurism. In an hour, the kitchen light and the dove white house next door will flicker on, and I'll stand at the window, my palms around a hot mug of black coffee, listening for signs my son is awake, remembering the echo of the rain as it ricochets off the roof, at the window, in the chimney on its way down. Hard, swift, soft. I want him to need me, but I also want to exist in the silent envelope of the morning too, before it's all called to begin again, before I take on all their heaviness, before I make every outcry a problem I find a way to solve. They've only caught me once at the window, the couple next door. Early risers, coaxing their shoulders into down parkas, they eyed me good but kept on, locking the side door behind them. I wanted to explain my ritual then, that I have sometimes needed to see the light on, somewhere outside my house, as though some pirate had ferried back from an extraordinary adventure, sand filling his shoes, and I still needed to see the dog-eared map as proof for myself. In the moments before dawn, the lonely ones, I have needed the bright light of the kitchen next door. I have needed that house to be awake. I have needed the sense that someone else was listening and remembering the rain beside me. So I guess in keeping with that theme, I'm going to skip to, I like to skip around a little bit. I don't like to go in order. A section of the book called My Sources Say No. Okay, so this is another more of a heavy poem about being home, but it's called From a Seedling. In my backyard, a sapling grows where an old tree once lived, and if I were better at identification, I would tell what kind, maple or elm. I don't know. For some reason, I never took interest in discerning one type of tree from another. I never too much cared. But I also was not one to shy away from rough bark. I can't say how many times my fingertips have given tacit praise to all the trees that will outlive me, or how fervently I apologized to the tree I agreed to see cut down. Yes, it was time. Yes, it was dead. Still, I held its thick trunk in my palms the night before the men came with chainsaws, just to say, I am in awe of the long life you lived so close to me. Laura, you mentioned cat poems, and then in your fourth section, you shared a poem, and there was a hound in your poem howling, and I can't tell you how much that pleased me. I have a hound as well, and he appears in a lot of my poems, even sometimes when I don't want him to. So he might make an appearance in the next one I'd like to read. I'd like to read a poem called Haunted. Um, and it's from the section Reply Hazy, Try Again. Haunted. Are we to agree a ghost is any shadow caught on the wall that can't be blamed on the light from the lamp or the large bay window in the living room? Does ghost mean any moment I am in the kitchen slicing apples with a paring knife, edging the sharp blade to my palm but never drawing blood? Is it when my dog stares east past the bramble bush in gray December for so long at nothing, or how my children, when I hold them, both pat my shoulder the way my grandmother once did? To which I add the memory of the man in the tire store who struck a profile so much like the man I used to really love, my heart waited a long moment to even beat in its cage again, so certain of its history, it could only widen its gaze, hold its breath, absolutely suspended. Um, I'll switch. So I mentioned my son in that in that poem. I have two kids and I write about them quite a bit. Um, so there's this poem that I have about my daughter that I'd like to share next. It's from the last section, As I See It, Yes. And the poems in the section, As I See It, Yes, as I mentioned, speak to the things in life that I feel solid about, the affirmative yes, such as my children. Um, so this is one that I like because it is so people say, is the poem true? Did it happen? Just with fiction, is this true? Has it happened? And I think the answer is yes, also no, also what percentage true is this? Might be the better question. But this poem is quite true. It's not 100, but it's quite high in the 90s in terms of this happened. So the poems that I have in this collection that I know are um, in the 90s, I think, kind of are special to me because they take me right back to that day and that moment. And I think that's something really nice about poetry. All writing can do this, but poetry specifically takes you right back to that moment. So this is called The Collective Noun for Octopus is Tangle. So also, if you feel you learn nothing else from these poems, now you know that the collective noun for octopus is tangle. An octopus has 3 hearts, my daughter says. Aha, I say. That sounds like trivia I've heard before. A random fact my mind turns over in its hand every once in a while, no doubt asking, and why are we keeping this? With her tongue, she's working her loose front tooth, the one that's held on so long it's safe to call stubborn. If I were wise, I would say from the driver's seat that I love her like 3 hearts, tell her I wish for extra arms. Could I have suction cups too? The better to hold on, stay attached, like her baby teeth want to do. Could we swim in an ocean so deep we're out of the light, out of sight? I might say we could be sea creatures with our extra arms. Tentacles, right, tentacles, not arms. Our tentacles and extra hearts together in our oddness. Octopus, octopuses, octopi, a tangle, more trivia hoarding in my mind. We could be so ourselves in our strangeness that women on the surface driving minivans to summer camp pause and consider as they shift to park, collect the backpacks, ready the goodbyes, just how wondrous it is to be us. Uh, and with 2 kids, it's fair to read about both of them equally, I suppose. So I'll share a couple more poems, but I've got this one about my son. My son kind of on a summer day, and I would say this is another one that's pretty true to life. And another one where the hound sneaks in. So I'm sorry if you're not a dog person. All right, this is a poem called Resignation, and it's actually the last poem in the book, just because I like the way it closed out the section in the book as well. Resignation. There's a wind that gives an honest rustling to all the leaves I was meant to rake Sunday. Brown and maroon, they huddle by the drain, holding on to the vestiges of the last thunderstorm. Instead, in the late arc of that afternoon, I laid my tools down in the yard and said yes to the patch of grass by the blue Adirondacks. The hound has long ago uncovered the secret of life in the grand patch of sun on the deck, and looks at me now like I finally understood the only lesson he was trying to teach me. When did all this get so overwhelming? I thought. Not the work of it, not the chores per se, but I don't know. What's the right word for the fullness of it all, the realness, the heaviness of their needs, their voices, insistent demands, the thud of their bodies climbing on me, the babies, I mean, who were no longer babies, but small, sticky planets that orbit so endlessly, bruising my shins, pulling my hair, roiling over each other in a contest to be closest to me. The attempt to attach the right word to parenting boomeranged me back to earth for what I had and what I had at first taken as half a dozen ants rendezvousing on my arm turned out to be my son's curly hair tickling my skin. From the deck, the hound thumps his approval 3 times. Here is my stickiest baby, my son. Here is the shooting star who never stops moving. He'd come to lay on my worries. He'd put all his weight on the invisible list of things I'd never get done. He'd come to make sure I studied the bright hazel orbs of his eyes. I think I'll do, I think I may do just two more. This is a shorter one from a section called, make sure I don't get it wrong, Outlook Not So Good. um, and this is a poem called You Don't Know. You don't know this, but one time, a few weeks after you called it off, I saw you at the supermarket. You were hunched over a sweet onion, running your thumb over its skin. You didn't see me holding my breath among the bananas. Your face looked distant and distracted, maybe even sad. And when you finally placed the fifth contender in your black basket, my mind combusted with the question, what in the world was wrong with any of the others? It's hard. I don't know, Laura, if you feel this way, but folks will say, what's your favorite poem from the collection? I think that's hard. I think it might depend. But I have a poem I think might be at least in my top 5 contenders. And it's very much a seasonal poem. And in August, we're not really in the right season for this poem. So I apologize. And I'm not trying to rush the holidays or school starting or anything like that. But one of my very favorite poems in the collection is a poem about my husband, and it's kind of wound up being a Christmas poem. So I'll share that and kind of look forward to the Q&A and conversation that we'll have afterwards. So this is a poem from, again, that last section. You may rely on it. And it's called As We Wind Down. As we wind down, thank you for saying this year is only a metaphor for a true story, like something you once heard at a bar, a joke a man told a woman in a back corner booth just to make her laugh. Sometimes we sit on the back porch, you and me, despite December, passing between us mulled wine, back and forth, as though we think we can hide from the world behind our little house and tell the stack of these months they can't reach us here. Like we think this is a place where solitude is a hymn whose words we sing on Sundays. And I am not pressed to conceal the places on my body where the seams have worn the hardest, where you tell me, even if I am threadbare, it's okay. The world may see it anyway, but who cares? The wise men would have wished for wine if they'd thought to. The wise men did not have you. Thank you, for warm wine, for your hand reaching out to mine, for our porch in late December. Christmas mornings a stone's throw away, and what is a miracle, I think, except when the world gives you exactly what you want in a way so different than how you asked for it. But yet, and yet, it's okay. The world may see it anyway, but who cares, even if I am threadbare. Thank you for you. You're a miracle. This year is a disaster. It's a wonder just the same.
Colleen, that was gorgeous. That was so beautiful, so poignant. And even though it is a million degrees in August, I so felt that. And I loved it, and I want it. I must buy it. But let me talking about all of the poems you shared with us, such vivid imagery, such insight, such wisdom, such beautifully crystallized personal moments that at the same time are just so resonant. Really, really incredible work, Colleen. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Colleen, can you show us the cover of the book again?
Sure.
Yeah,
It's kind of like an abstract 8-ball.
Yes, it's so.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Yes, yeah, and it almost looks like a projector, also like a film projector, like at first glance, but
And a light bulb too, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
a lot going on, and that's very cool. I love
Yeah.
that too. I remember
Very cool.
those were always so much fun, when you're a kid.
Awesome. And you have several chapbooks as well. Very cool.
And
Very cool. Colleen, so just wonderful to hear you. And there are so many, like, you have to go, both of you, Laura and Colleen, you'll have to go see all of the love you received in the chat. But there were just a few little lines that I quoted here. Kind of, I think maybe the best metaphor I've ever heard for children is small sticky planets. That was amazing. Of course, loved the tangle, fun fact, and the beauty in that poem. We could be so ourselves in our strangeness. That was fantastic. And then holding my breath among the bananas. Boy, do I have like sad heartbreak, but grocery store association memories. Like that just like hits like a weird resonance for me that I think other people really get as well. That's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Definitely. It always seems to happen in grocery stores. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Music.
I think the music. I think you're right. Well, we need to bring up both of our incredible guests this evening to get started with our Q&A. Let's have another round of applause for Laura Anella Johnson and Colleen Ellis. Oh, you were both fantastic, bringing us to all of these like powerful and poignant personal places with fantastic imagery. Did you see that resonance? But how there were like there are all these beautiful crossovers between.
Yeah, for sure.
That serendipitous synergy.
You got the hound dogs.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't go wrong.
It always surprises us. We love it. We absolutely love it. And both of you had me almost crying over here, which is good. I love that because I love when things resonate with me that much. But anyhow, folks in the audience, thank you so much for your comments. Keep them flowing. Get those cues in the chat. Get those questions in there. But Chris, we need to kick this off with our famous first question.
Right. And there's a lot of poets out there in the audience. You need. I know you got some questions, so pop them in there. But to start off, we'll start off with Laura. How has writing and being a writer changed your life, Laura? How's it changed you?
Big question.
Your life.
Oh boy. Yeah, well, I told about when I was 14 and started writing stuff down, and that's how I sort of got things settled with God. I think that was my first big clue, that writing was important and meaningful, that it would do a lot for you.
Is tapping in.
Yeah. And, and I think that I've worked out a lot of other things since I've started writing poetry, whether I'm writing to someone else or just writing out, from my own thoughts and impulses. One of my favorite poets is Denise Levertov.
Yes. Same.
Yeah. And, she said that, in a way, poetry was her path. That, her parents were Christians, and she became agnostic at age 14, came back to faith in her early 40s. She said it had a lot to do with poetry,
That's awesome.
The images and metaphors that came to her when she was writing helped her work things out, and I really, that resonates with me.
That is so cool, Laura. I back in our MFA program, one of the things I focused on was actually Christian poetry by women, and I was really focused on how poetry can be a form of prayer, like speaking from what's within you with this level of faith that it matters, or that somebody is listening, and just believing in the importance of that, and just how powerful that is. I love your answer, because whether you are a person of faith or not, expressing yourself in this way, ordering it on the page, it helps you to sort things out and to find yourself. I love how you referenced Denise Levertov saying like it was her path, and that resonates so much with me too. That's awesome. Very, very awesome to hear, Laura. That's so cool. Colleen, over to you. How has writing changed your life?
Same answer.
That's awesome. No, go ahead.
I think yes. And actually, I like the quote you shared, Laura. There's a great Sylvia Plath quote that I won't Google, but it's something about I make order from my life, I make meaning from my life, from the chaos of it. And I think that's a similar vein of things happen to us, big or small, and sometimes the smallest things have the biggest emotional impact, and that's
Yeah.
really surprising. And sometimes big things happen and we don't feel very impacted at all. So it's not necessarily the thing out in the world that happens, it's more our emotional response to it that's telling. But I think I use writing to make meaning and to make sense of big things and small things for myself. I'm a big advocate of journaling. I think journaling is just the healthiest thing that we all can do. And if you're not journaling, you're really missing hours of free therapy, or
I love
99-cent therapy. I mean, it couldn't be cheaper to get a notebook and a pen, or type if you wish. But I think we work out a lot of things, and I think we just don't know how we feel about something until we actually sit with it, take the time, write it out. And I'm always happy after I've written for that feeling of now I know how I feel about this. Now I know what I think about this, in a more thoughtful and reflective way. So,
Well,
Yeah.
you said there's some poetry in your collection there about the pandemic and all that stuff, and we've been doing this live stream since the pandemic started. So of course, we've seen many pandemic poems, and talk about trying to make sense.
Exactly.
We have no control over, and I mean it's become this huge, metaphor, really, for life. I mean, it's like the pandemic of life,
Right.
whatever you want.
Giving you all of this like space and time and isolation, whether you liked it or not, to kind of dig into those thoughts and feelings as as strange and uncomfortable, and just maybe hyper focused as as they are. And absolutely, Colleen, just what you said about what writing does for you, and journaling, and how poetry is such a part of that. And I think poetry in the editing and the crystallization process can be so healing, because we are kind of, not only have we found the words for these moments, for these thoughts, these feelings, these stories, and that's one thing, but then we're able to kind of edit it and shape it and kind of make it its own thing outside of ourselves. I think all of that is such a healing process, and such a helpful process, and that's awesome. That's awesome to hear. Speaking of quarantine and pandemic poetry, etc. We haven't asked this question in a little while, and I'm gonna update it a little bit. So, a question that we asked probably our whole first year of the live stream was, how has your poetry life, how has your writing life and or reading, performing, sharing life changed in the pandemic? And maybe I want to add to that now, how how has it returned to closer to normal at this point? So what effect has the pandemic had on your writing, and where are you at with that now, Laura, and then Colleen?
Oh, well, we have this nice group here, the FUMFA Live, and
Yes.
I didn't get to participate in those readings, the Fairfield University readings, before, unless I flew up there, right? So I get to do that, and there's I work, with a group in Warm Springs, and during the pandemic, we had to kind of call halt on that. And we began just emailing back and forth, sharing poems. And we found that we got sometimes better discussions that way
Wow.
than we had face to face. People can take time to think about it and think what they want to write in response. And you know, and now that people have started going back face to face, we do it bi-monthly, you know, and in the in-betweens, we're still, you know, we said we like the email, so we're going to do a little this and a little that.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Very cool. What about you, Colleen? It seems like it was kind of a generative time, perhaps.
I think so. I like to think so. And remember, early in the pandemic, there was that Facebook meme that was like, "Remember, Shakespeare wrote plays in the bubonic plague."
Yeah, I remember that.
And then,
everyone was like feeling the pressure, like I need to like turn out work now.
and then immediately there was backlash that was like, "Do not pressure yourself to write a play." So I think I oscillated back and forth. I would have a lot of writing, and then sometimes I was like, I don't have any energy. And people say I don't have time, and I think what they mean is they don't have energy, which is just as fair to say you don't have the energy. Totally understandable. But I did, you know, there were a lot of I think I did get some extra writing time in some ways, but in other ways not with young kids. But I think for me too, the pandemic and kind of just going deep into the interior and isolation, I just kind of wrote some strange stuff. And I wrote honestly, and I wrote stuff that was really also joyful and fun because I realized that I needed something really joyful and fun. So I actually found that to be true too, is that I was looking for just kind of some goofy things, some funny things, to balance everything out. So the heaviness, you know, wasn't quite so heavy. And in fact, my first novel came out in July of 2020, so right as the pandemic. And my first novel is very lighthearted and very cozy, and part of me felt very awkward about this heavy time in our world's history and in our nation's history. It was right after the George Floyd incident, and I was on Facebook like, "Hey, I wrote a romantic comedy.
You want to
if
read a
anyone-"
fun book right now?
So
Well, we
that was
probably really
awkward.
needed it.
But that's what my wonderful friends and supportive family, and they said, "No, we still want to read a fun story before bed. We still want to enjoy the lighter side of life." So yeah.
I didn't write a lot of stuff about the pandemic, but there was this one, you know, when Colleen said that, you know, the goofy funnies, whatever. I remember driving home from work, and I'm a teacher, so we didn't have a long break, you know, from March until the beginning of that next year. We were, from March till the end of the year, we were out. But then we got started back. But a lot of the world out there was still kind of shut down. And I remember driving home, and Josh Groban was singing Ave Maria on the radio, and this face mask was tumbling across the road in the light and the rain, you know, kind of to the tune, you know, to the rhythm. And I wrote about that. That one might show my first book.
Oh my god! Oh my god, Lord, that's
closest thing to you know, to a pandemic concert I could get. So.
It was a gift.
What an incredible juxtaposition. Let me just say that right now. But Laura, do you have this poem? Is it ready to be shared?
Oh. I don't know where that. I would have to dig down in my Google files.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how ready it is.
But you know,
I'll share it someday.
if you look at all the classic movies from the early 1930s during the Great Depression, where people were, you know, like really, I mean, they were suffering, and they're all comedies and musicals and all these lighthearted things, because that's, you know, that's what people wanted and needed.
Yeah.
And I think it does a great service.
Absolutely. 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 Oh wow, that's just so great. And I'm so glad, well, that we've all made it through this time, and that you both were able to be productive and maybe went in these different directions. And I know the same happened for me. Among the few silver linings of that time, or a few of these little moments. But since both of you have brand new books, I would love to ask a little bit more and kind of pair this with Brenda's question here.
Yeah.
Brenda says, Laura, how did you come upon your color theme? And I would love for you to share more about the color theme, and then afterwards, Colleen, to share more about the 8-ball.
I was just looking for a way to organize the book, and I noticed, when I got all the finished poems that I had together, that there was a lot of color in there, and so I just kind of broke it down into the subtitles to kind of go with that. And it was actually after I decided what my sections were going to be and what the title of the book was going to be, that I wrote the dress poem. And I felt like that the blue and black dress kind of tied the whole thing together.
That brought me back. I haven't thought about the color of the dress discussion for a little while. That's such a great thing to have, a moment to have in there. Cool.
It's all about perspective, right?
Yes. yes. And that really does resonate and tie together with the poems that you shared. That's so great. Colleen, I know you shared quite a bit with us about the 8-ball theme. How did you arrive there? How did you make that choice initially?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I had this manuscript just for years, and it's had so many different titles, and it's had so many different shapes and forms, and I can't remember exactly the 8-ball idea, but once I decided to do that, everything kind of just clicked in place from there, and it was really great. But yeah, it's hard, right, Laura, to find something that ties these poems together, and without being too vague or without being too specific. And then to find a title, that's another thing. I've always struggled with titles. So I think I had, maybe not an exaggeration to say, 12 different titles before. So there was like a relief of like finally finding an organizing principle that I liked, and I could stop changing the title.
I so get that, Colleen, and I always think like, oh, that's going to be probably the most fun part about this. But just because it feels fun does not mean that it is easy.
Yeah.
Kind of, because that's such a part of how you're going to be sharing this manuscript, this book, and how people are going to be receiving it and understanding it. And I think my first manuscript and my second manuscript, when I shared it with a manuscript reviewer, I had all of this very strong ideas about what the title and organization is going to be. And then when I got some really fantastic feedback, I was like, oh, no, not that. No, we need to go in this different direction. But that is so powerful, what those choices end up being. And I resonate with your story of, I think we've all done this with the papers everywhere and reorganizing them and throwing them out. That is so cool. And it's great to hear. It's great to hear that we don't. I don't end up asking about that quite enough. That's a really important part of any manuscript, especially poetry. I think we have a great little comment from our friend Balke, who was on open mic last week. He says, sometimes if you remain open, the universe just hands us what we need as long as we are paying enough attention to find it. That is so true. I love that.
Very true.
Yes, very, very true.
Laura, I had a question for you. I'm struck by the poem about the teacher
Oh,
backing up the classroom of the teacher who was dying.
Oh, yeah.
That was just like, that was a real heartbreaker. And I just wonder like how you approached that poem, because you did the how-to format. Did that just come to you like that, or was this like a topic that was looking for a way for you to get find your way in, and you stumbled upon that, or like how'd you come to that?
I mean, I don't remember specifically how I came, to the how-to, but I remember packing up that classroom, and the whole time I was packing up that classroom, it was one of the few times where I felt like I was walking around inside a poem.
Yeah.
It just felt like it needed to be written down.
Well, there's just so many ways you could write. There's just so many ways you could write about those feelings and do it in a way that they could be not as effective,
Mm.
Like, and anything that, I mean, you obviously felt very strongly about this, and as anybody would in that situation. And I think it's really hard to write about those kinds of things unless you find the right way to do it. If you just tackle it straight on. I was packing up,
Right.
just lay there on a piece of paper and just like doesn't get you, but the way coming upon that technique, the how to, somehow really just
I
lifts.
feel like it ends up being so much of like this is a powerful moment of life, and that very likely, I'm gonna be writing a poem. I'm gonna be processing this from poetry. I need to put this into those words. And I think the challenge then, the way that I think of it, comes to me as like, well, I need to follow the flow of that in its authenticity, in how the kind of the feelings, the words, and the images come together, rather than my analysis of like a step by step, and so kind of like preventing myself from editing, preventing myself from like directing the scenario, and kind of as much as possible like flowing with just exactly what those feelings are, and kind of doing my best to like stay in those moments. If there's anything that is a touchstone for me that kind of reminds me of exactly what that moment have looked and felt like, I think that ends up being such a challenge, because you sometimes want to have just this like endless detail narrator voice, and that is not what that moment is.
There's a
Laura-
distance.
Also, it's coming back to me a little bit. It's been a while since I wrote that one, but I do remember that the events took place in post-planning in May.
Yeah.
And I didn't start writing that until we were back.
Right.
I started writing it in August, but I was writing it in my head for a couple of months, So, yeah.
I so know that feeling. You're like, this is it's brewing, it's marinating. And like when I do hit the page with it, you're just trying to be as authentic to it as possible. But it's a very weird explanation for like how that happens. I think the only thing that I need to keep in mind is not to bruise the authenticity of that. And to maybe not wait so long that I start to forget some details. I think that you know what I mean? It's hard to say, but yeah, absolutely, Laura. That is really powerful poem. Colleen, what about you with that experience, that from the moments of inspiration, knowing you're going to write about this, to the page, what does that look like for you? I know it's kind of an abstract process a bit.
Yeah, abstract, and I think sometimes it's different every time. I mean, sometimes it's one afternoon and I feel really happy with the poem, and other times I'll pull up something in my Google Doc from 8 years ago. Yeah. And I still think, oh, there's a reason I haven't deleted this yet. And I
Yes.
still find a way to tinker or maybe conflate that with a different experience. And now it's a cool poem, but it's, less true per
Yep.
se, but emotionally true, right? But not literally true anymore. So I think sometimes it's different, but I like the days where I'm driving and I'm like, oh, I feel a thought, and just the temptation to like pull over and text myself something,
Yes.
so I don't forget. So it can really surprise you, and I think that's something that draws me to writing all the time. It's always really surprising. Um,
Absolutely.
how it unfolds, and it feels like a little bit of magic, I think.
Is that process any different for fiction, or
Great
because
question.
Yeah.
novels are just like these humongous, canvases that you have versus.
So I can imagine it's so different as like a single genre poetry person over here. I'm like, just like, I'm so resonating with everything, but like Chris is fiction, and I don't feel like you can. I don't feel like it works the same way. Colleen, tell us.
I don't think it works the same way. And now I'm like, yeah, poetry is a lot more fun, isn't it? It's fiction.
Yes.
Fiction is like your butt better be at that computer and you better get your words. Yeah.
So I hear.
You better get to 1,500 words if you said you were going to write 1,500 words today. But for me, at least as a fiction writer for long form, I just have to get a draft out, and have some clay on the wheel to start working with. So I have to set goals and press myself to just, even if it's not very good, just get it out, because
Mm.
then I start editing, and it gets better from there, I hope. But yeah, much different. I can't think often where I just sit down and say like, okay, you're not leaving this table until you've written a poem. I don't think that's a great way to generate
I don't think
poems.
poems. I don't even think the poems can necessarily even come with that level of pressure. There's a mystical element and a level of patience that I don't think can be kind of planned or pushed quite as much as with prose.
I
And I'm
agree.
sure that
Yeah.
there's people out there who'll disagree with me, will be like, no, like I can do it this way, and that's awesome. But I feel like it definitely works differently like that. Colleen, what do you think? Chris, what do you think about all these poetry things? All this stuff.
I don't know how you guys do it. No, it's terrible. Poetry to me is like, and I've written the occasional
Well, you've written many songs.
and work. It's right,
Decent.
songs, but it's a different thing from poetry.
That
I
is true.
feel strong with that, but it's poetry to me is that I sense to me it seems like writing a great poem is like writing a great postcard. It's like you have only so much space. Well, you have so much space, and it's. I mean, it's a real. There's no room for any error. It's like, boom, you got to get in. Unless you're writing like epic poems,
Or like prose poems, which blur the line.
they're on the short side. It's like every word counts. In a novel, you want every word to count, but not you can't put that much, pressure on you for every single word.
All right.
100,000 word novel to count. It just doesn't work that way.
It'd be so brutal.
It's hard. No, I as much crap as I give.
He teases.
I admire the poets.
Oh, he absolutely does. And I know the teasing is all in jest, but it's fun.
Friends, and then it says,
I know, Chris, I was about to make a comment earlier. I'm like, you're surrounded by poets tonight. But Colleen is also a prose writer, so we want to make sure.
She knows.
She knows.
That's how it works. I think it's time for us to
Our famous last double question.
Our famous last double question. I guess we'll start with Laura as well, which is, first one is a pearl of wisdom for our viewers out there, many of whom, probably most of whom, are writers. So, any kind of wisdom you could share for them, about writing. And then part two is just a book recommendation, something that has turned you on book-wise at any time that you can share with us. I don't mean a dirty book, but it's like, oh, that's okay.
Does inspire you.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So, words of wisdom. You want words of wisdom from me?
Absolutely, Laura.
Okay.
Pearl of wisdom.
Well, make every word count, right, Chris? And,
Yes.
And I think you have to, like Colleen said, sometimes you have to pull over and And because thoughts, impulses come, and busyness of life will just bury it, and then you've forgotten and you don't know. And so, the times when I wrote down the starts or the first idea of a poem, that's when it happens.
Yeah.
Because, you get a thought and you let it go, then it's too late. So far as a book, probably my favorite little book is Denise Levertov's The Stream and the Sapphire.
Yes.
I like that one.
That is so great. That is so great. Oh, Laura, I would love to dig in more to the spiritual and faith aspects of your poetry, but I'm just gonna have to get the book, and we'll just have to invite you back on another time. But that is so cool, and so cool to hear Denise Levertov as your recommendation for tonight. That's really awesome, and it was so great to hear those poems that did touch on those topics. Very awesome. But Colleen, we need to pass it over to you. A pearl of wisdom and a book recommendation.
Sure. Gosh, I guess so. Something about me is that I'm also a distance runner. I do long races, and so that entails training. And so I think that became at some point a really great metaphor for my writing life because, you're training and this day you have to run this many miles, but the next day is a rest day. And I kind of started to think about writing that way, is that I would find days to push myself, try to get some things done, but leave some rest days in there. And some people would argue with that and say, no, you must write every day. I don't think you must write every day. I think it's good to rest, and
Yes.
You're not really resting either. Your brain is thinking, and you're taking a lot of things
It's
in.
process.
And
A lot is happening. You need
lot's
that
happening.
rest for that stuff to happen. I agree.
Yeah. So that's kind of, I guess, if that's a pearl of wisdom.
Totally is.
But I froze when you said book recommendation because it's just so hard. But in terms of a writing book, if I can limit it to that, I will plug Stephen King's On Writing. If you've not read,
Yeah.
he's so lovely. And I call him lovely, and people look at me because so maybe some of his actual plot lines aren't lovely, but as a nonfiction writer and as a memoirist, that book is so beautiful. And he talks so generously about his craft and how he writes. And I found it really helpful. Just, especially when you're just starting to grapple with writing, you do want to know how do other people do it.
Right.
And he's very generous with explaining how he does it. So
Yeah, I think far and away that's his best book, and it really is. I mean, he's so clear in his how he talks about writing, and then the story of how he was hit by a van. I mean, he tells the whole story of all this horrible accident he had. It's riveting, and his coming up through the publishing business and everything. It's a really great book, and it's a great recommendation.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much once again, Laura Anella Johnson and Colleen Ellis, for reading
Thank
with
you.
us and for sharing your thoughts and for answering our questions as well. You're both just fantastic. And we always hope to have everyone come back around. So please do stay in touch. We do open mic nights and theme nights as well. We'd love to have you back, and love to have you back for a feature sometime soon, especially whenever you have a new book or a new-ish book to share. It was just wonderful to hear from these incredible books. And everybody out there in the audience, thank you for watching, and please go and search up the fabulous books of Laura Anella Johnson and Colleen Ellis. And we will be coming back at you next week, Chris, with
Get S.K. Marr and Amy C. Martin, and that's right. And then Then we have a week off from this, but we're live. I mean, in person. And then at the end of the month, we got Adele Anisi and Dawn Burns. So we got an exciting August.
It's going to be awesome. And sign up and come out for that in-person open mic Friday, August 19th, 7:30 at Eco Evolution in South Norwalk. Going to be fantastic.
With all regards to the great state of Georgia and Michigan, Grand Rapids. I lived in Michigan for 8 years.
Oh, Chris, I didn't know that.
I did.
Oh my God. Is that what you went to college, right?
The-
That's right.
That's right. I was over in Ann Arbor, but I've been to Grand Rapids.
That's awesome.
Hip little town. It's become like kind of a hip town, Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
A lot of breweries.
Yes.
We love a brewery. Oh my God. That's like one thing we didn't talk about extensively yet this evening in particular. That's so great. All right. Well, both of you, thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. Thanks, audience. We will see you all next Sunday. Bye.
Thank you. Great to